back immediately. The Salmonids aren't pushovers either.
Nintendo doing a spin-off is always a wait let them cook moment, but Splatoon Raiders is a massive shift for the franchise. We're moving entirely away from the sweat-inducing multiplayer ranked ladders and going straight into a single-player, story-driven adventure. You play as a mechanic exploring the Spiralite Islands accompanied by the deep-cut crew. It's got this refreshing, adventurous vibe that honestly feels like a missing link between a classic Nintendo platformer and a tactical shooter. The core gameplay centers on exploration, traversal, and verticality, but the biggest mechanical shakeup is how you interact with the world. Since you're playing a mechanic, you aren't just coding territory to claim it, you're fixing up ancient machinery, navigating physics puzzles, and using ink as a literal tool to solve environmental roadblocks. If you do want to bring friends along, there's a 4-player co-op mode that scales the difficulty based on your party size. What's really neat is how it leverages the Switch 2 hardware. The ink physics look noticeably thicker, the liquid rendering has a genuine sheen to it, and when you're swimming through a pipeline or bursting through an ink wall, there's no stutter. It's locked down, smooth, and hyper-responsive. It's exactly the kind of palate cleanser the series needed to prove that the world of Encadia can hold its own without a competitive timer ticking down in the corner.
A global collapse is underway, and Shinjuku was the starting point of it all.
If you spent dozens of hours running around Tokyo in Cyber Sleuth, Digimon Storytime Stranger is going to feel like a massive homecoming media. Vision took their sweet time with this one nearly 8 years, but the wait was worth it. The plot kicks off with a catastrophic event called the Shinjuku Inferno, throwing your character 8 years into the past to uncover a conspiracy involving a civil war in the Iliad digital world. It's a darker, more mature narrative that targets the audience who grew up with the franchise rather than trying to appeal strictly to kids. Mechanically, it is easily the most comprehensive turn-based system the series has ever put together. The monster taming mechanic is addictive, boasting over 450 Digimon to collect, raise, and digivolve. The combat relies heavily on strategic positioning, timeline manipulation, and the newly integrated time loop mechanics, where actions you take in the past alter rifts and enemy layouts in the present. Performance-wise, the Switch 2 version gives you a legitimate choice. A gorgeous 4K mode locked at 30 frames per second that makes Suzuhito Yasuda's signature character art pop, or a flawless -1080p performance mode hitting a smooth 60 frames per second. The menus flow effortlessly, loading screens into battle are incredibly brief, and the farm management features feel way less passive than before. It's a deep meat and potatoes JRPG that respects your time while giving you an absurd amount of team building depth to min-max. Squanch Games had a lot to prove with High on Life 2, especially with the massive studio restructuring behind the scenes. They essentially doubled down on fixing the first game's biggest mechanical flaws. The humor is still front and center, your Gatlians talk just as much as before though, you now have direct dialogue options to snark right back at them, but the actual moment-to-moment gameplay is what received the real upgrade. Instead of a single repetitive hub, you're dropping into 3 massive Metroidvania-style worlds that beg to be explored. To get around, they introduced a skateboard mechanic that completely changes how you approach both exploration and combat. You can slide, dash, grapple, and skate through environments, building momentum to execute aerial takedowns on alien cartels. The gunplay feels noticeably tighter, with better hit registration and punchier sound design, making the weapons feel like actual instruments of destruction rather than just joke delivery systems.
Cannot sit idly by and allow such deeds to go unpunished.
Cygames is keeping the momentum of their hit action RPG alive with Endless Ragnarok, a massive expansion that acts less like a simple DLC pack and more like a total evolution of the endgame. The story introduces a terrifying new apocalyptic threat called the Ragnalia, but the real draw here is how it shifts the combat paradigm. The crown jewel of the new mechanics is the summon system. You can now equip and actively take control of iconic primal beasts during combat. While you're controlling a summon, your main character gains complete invincibility, transforming the mechanic into a high-level defensive panic button or a massive offensive burst window. It culminates in primal bursts, which trigger when your party coordinates their skybound arts perfectly. If you think you mastered the base game, the new Chaos difficulty tier will humble you immediately. Bosses now use EX bursts, signaled by a menacing purple aura requiring absolute precision with your dodge and parry windows. To help you tackle this, the expansion adds 6 incredibly distinct playable characters to the roster, including heavy hitters like Galanza and community favorites like Beatrix. Best of all, the Switch 2 version introduces exclusive local communication co-op alongside full crossplay, running smoothly without breaking a sweat during intense 4-player raids. It is pure high-octane action RPG bliss. We've had plenty of underwhelming Avatar games over the years, but Avatar Legends the fighting game is the first time a studio is treating the universe with serious competitive fighting game respect, developed by Gameplay Group International. This is a gorgeous hand-drawn 2D anime fighter that finally gives fans the fluid, high-octane bending battles they've been begging for. Instead of a clunky arena brawler, the game focuses on technical precision, aerial movement, and an intricate flow system that rewards momentum. The roster blends eras flawlessly, letting you run dream matchups like Korra versus Azula. Every element feels mechanically distinct. Earthbending lets you manipulate the physical stage boundaries. Airbending offers unparalleled mobility, firebending relies on aggressive frame data and pressure, and waterbending provides excellent zoning options. To add extra strategic depth, you select dynamic assist characters that change your combo expressions. On the technical side, the game launches with best-in-class rollback netcode and crossplay right out of the gate. On the Switch 2, the hand-drawn sprite work and explosive elemental particle effects look absolutely pristine. It runs at a locked, uncompromising 60 frames per second, which is non-negotiable for a fighter trying to establish a presence in the competitive scene. It's sharp, it's fast, and it treats the source material with absolute reverence. You ever wondered what would happen if you took the cozy crop-watering rhythm of Stardust Valley and dunked it in gothic horror? Moonlight Peaks is the answer. Instead of a generic farmer inheritance, you play as a vampire trying to build a life in a town full of werewolves, witches, and ghosts. What makes it immediately stand out is that the entire world operates on a nocturnal schedule. You sleep during the day and step out at night, which subverts how we usually think about light and time mechanics in the genre. The farming gameplay leans hard into the supernatural theme. You aren't growing corn and carrots, you're cultivating cursed pumpkins, nightshade, and magical herbs to brew potions. The game replaces standard iron or copper tool upgrades with a progression system tied to your vampire lineage, letting you shapeshift into a bat to fast travel across the valley or cast spells to instantly harvest your supernatural plots. It is incredibly charming, and it treats its spooky aesthetic with a warm, comforting vibe rather than anything genuinely scary. On the Switch 2, the lighting system handles the perpetual night beautifully. The ambient glow from bioluminescent plants, the eerie fog rolling over the fences, and the soft candlelight from the village square all look crisp and atmospheric without turning the screen into a muddy, unreadable mess. It's an incredibly smart spin on the cozy genre that proves there's still plenty of room to iterate on the farming simulator blueprint. Some games wear their inspirations on their sleeves, and Denshattack is a loud, chaotic love letter to the golden era of arcade puzzle fighters. It takes the fast-paced grid management of Super Puzzle Fighter and combines it with a bizarre, high-energy theme centered around train conductor battles and public transit line management. It's exactly as ridiculous as it sounds, and that commitment to absolute absurdity is why it works so well. The mechanics are brilliant, but brutal. You drop blocks to clear your own tracks, but every match you chain together sends derailment penalties over to your opponent's grid. The pacing is breakneck. You cannot afford to pause and deliberate because the game forces you to constantly balance building high-value combos with managing a ticking speed multiplier bar. The characters are completely unhinged transit employees with unique super moves that can flip your grid or lock down specific columns. Visually, the game utilizes a vibrant, neon-drenched pixel art style that moves at a blisteringly fluid 60 frames per second on the Switch 2. There is zero input lag, which is absolutely critical for a game operating at this speed. Whether you're playing through the single-player arcade ladder or utilizing the local split-screen mode to destroy your friendships, it captures that classic just one more match arcade panic perfectly. The spiritual successor is a risky gamble in gaming, but Ratatan feels like a triumphant victory lap for the creative minds behind the legendary Patapon series. The developers launched a massive Kickstarter campaign for this, and the end product is a masterclass in how to modernize a classic concept without losing the rhythmic soul that made people fall in love with it in the first place. You play as a conductor leading a massive army of adorable weapon-wielding creatures called Kobatons into battle. The core gameplay remains a delicate, hypnotic dance. You tap out specific 4-beat button prompts to command your army to march, attack, defend, or retreat. However, Ratatan drops the rigid, linear, side-scrolling format of its ancestor for dynamic, open arenas that allow for genuine tactical flanking. The audio design is spectacular. Every command you input layers flawlessly into a dynamic changing soundtrack that grows more intense as your combo counter climbs. Running on the Switch 2, the game's hand-drawn, cartoon aesthetic looks stunningly vibrant, and the console handles hundreds of independent units clashing on screen without a single frame drop. It's a beautifully rhythmic tactical experience that proves some gameplay concepts are genuinely timeless. The cult classic strategy franchise returns after a massive hiatus, with Culdcept Begins, and it remains one of the most unapologetically unique tabletop experiences in gaming if you've never played a Culdcept game. The easiest way to describe it is a high-stakes hybrid of Monopoly and Magic the Gathering. You roll dice to move around a board, but instead of buying properties, you summon powerful monsters onto board tiles to claim them. When an opponent lands on your space, they don't just pay rent. They can choose to fight your station monster using a deck of spell cards, items, and creatures they've customized beforehand. This creates an incredible layer of mind games where a space is never truly safe. The progression is deeply satisfying, letting you collect and build specialized decks to counter aggressive, defensive, or magic-heavy playstyles. This entry streamlines the notoriously slow pacing of the older titles, with faster dice animations, immediate card summaries, and snappy phase transitions. The Switch 2 hardware makes managing your hand and scanning the entire board effortless, with beautifully detailed 2D card art overlays and seamless online matchmaking that supports full, local handheld wireless play. It's a deep, cerebral strategy game that will absolutely devour your free time if you let it. Taking an acclaimed VR exclusive and rebuilding it entirely for standard screens is a massive gamble. But Polyarc is doing exactly that with Moss the Forgotten Relic. They aren't just slapping a flat screen camera mode onto the existing games. They've completely reimagined both Moss and Moss 2 from the ground up into a single unified cinematic platformer. If you missed out on Quill's journey because you didn't want to strap a headset to your face, this is your entry point. The mechanical shift here is fascinating. In VR, you are a literal, omnipresent entity physically interacting with the environment while controlling Quill with the analog sticks. Now, those dual interactions have been translated onto a traditional controller layout. You're managing environmental physics puzzles, moving massive stone blocks and clearing paths, while simultaneously directing Quill through precise platforming and sword combat. It requires a distinct kind of muscle memory, but it feels surprisingly tactile and fluid. Visually, the jump to the Switch 2 hardware gives this storybook world an incredible level of clarity. The microscopic scale of the environments, where a standard teacup looks like a massive monument, benefits immensely from the higher resolution. The lighting bouncing off mossy ruins, the crisp water effects, and the sheer expressiveness of Quill's animations translate beautifully to a TV screen without losing an ounce of the original magic. It's a masterclass in adaptation that turns a VR darling into a premier console adventure. Nippon Ichi Software is taking their notoriously deep, grind-heavy franchise and throwing it into a completely new genre with Disgaea Mayhem. The tactical grid is gone. This is a pure high-octane action RPG spin-off. The premise is peak Disgaea absurdity. You play as a mercenary hired by the overlord of the super-duper netherworld to track down and reclaim a stolen dessert called the Pristine Gleam Flan. While the perspective has shifted to real-time action, the franchise's chaotic soul remains intact. The core gameplay lets you take direct control of combat, utilizing 7 distinct weapon types to hack and slash your way through hordes of monsters. The ultimate goal is exactly what you expect: min-maxing your builds to hit the absurd level 9,999 cap and dealing hundreds of millions of damage in single combos. Classic systems like reincarnation and passing dark assembly builds have been seamlessly integrated into the action, letting you manipulate game rules and item stats on the fly. The technical transition to the Switch 2 works wonders for a game this chaotic. When you trigger flashy screen clearing skills with hundreds of numbers exploding off enemies simultaneously, the hardware handles the visual noise effortlessly. It offers the perfect scratch for that classic itch of watching numbers go up, wrapped in a blisteringly fast action package that you can take anywhere. If you enjoyed the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out one of the videos on screen right now. As always, I'm Cyril, big thanks to the community, and I'll see you on the next video.